Hi, everyone. On behalf of Perimeter 81, thank you for joining us for this exciting webinar, SASE is a movement, not a fad. We have an exciting hour planned for you, and we hope you are all really excited just as much as we are. And before we start, I would like to look at our agenda. We have a small introduction to each of the people on each of the speakers that are attending today. We're going to take a quick glance at the current SASE landscape, and that's before diving into some research, case studies, and more. We will also conclude with a Q&A session, so feel free to send over any of your questions within the Bright Talk window throughout the webinar, and we'll be sure to answer them towards the end of the session. So, to kick off today's webinar, I'm thrilled to introduce our featured speakers for you guys today. We have the CEO and co-founder of Perimeter 81, Amit Bareket. As well, we have the research director of Del Oro Group, Mauricio Sanchez. And I'm Michael Susan, the digital marketing producer at Perimeter 81, and I'm going to be moderating today's event. Let's get into it. So, Mauricio, would you please tell us about yourself and a little bit about Del Oro Group?
Sure. So Del Oro Group is based out of Northern California in the Silicon Valley. We've been around 25 years, and we've been renowned as a quantitative market research firm. So very independent and providing numbers on a very strong cadence. And I lead the network security and data center appliances. And in that umbrella, it also pulls in the quant analysis of SASE, and hence why I'm here today. And so I've been digging into the landscape over the last year and starting to see some nuggets of what's happening there that I'd like to share today. But really excited here to be able to chat with you guys and discuss what's happening in this landscape.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Amit, same question to you.
Yes, so my name is Amit. I'm the co-founder and the CEO of Perimeter 81. We are a cybersecurity networking startup, a scale-up company based out of Tel Aviv, New York, and LA. What we are specializing in is to build and deliver a unified secure network as a service from the cloud. Today we run about 30 different data centers all over the globe in order to deliver unified both networking and security to be delivered to companies all over the world. We have more than 1,700 business customers that consume and deliver networking and security utilizing our platform. 150 employees, growing very rapidly, and really like to work with our customers end by end in order to build a very comprehensive SASE platform.
Wonderful. So, gentlemen, let's give a little glance at today's current SASE landscape. Let's allow the audience to kind of understand what SASE looks like today before you guys go into your slides about research and case studies, etc. So why don't you start, Amit? Kick us off.
All right, so I'll be happy to start. So generally speaking, the concept is very, very simple. Today, employees are working from home and from anywhere, and resources are moving to the cloud, leaving offices empty. And the corporate network is the internet. And the other side, infrastructure really develops. And 5G is coming to edge, fiber is available anywhere. And that basically improvement in the infrastructure level and the internet quality and the fast, right? That it's everyone has today almost a fiber connection from their home. Allows basically that fundamental shift from consuming a site-centric security and networking infrastructure to basically a network security solution that is delivered as a service over the internet. And that basically all the ingredients, right, of infrastructure, that the internet is very fast, and the fact that employees are outside, resources are moving the on-premise. It doesn't make sense to consume security on a site-centric basis. And what companies are looking for today and need is how they basically provide a secure network for their corporate and the Secure network will be delivered over the internet and basically provide a user-centric security. I would like my employees, regardless where they open their computer, to have the same security experience. And that's what basically drives SASE. And SASE basically is a term that can be reflected as a secure network as a service, but with the E at the end, which is very important, the edge. The fact that those services that are delivered over the internet, but they're delivered locally, okay? Because you cannot compete with latency, you need to have a very local experience. So because you don't want to send all your traffic to the cloud, the other side of the globe, you want all the services to be delivered very quickly. So that's basically speaking the concept behind SASE, the move from a site-centric security to a platform as a service solution that is being delivered from the cloud.
Wonderful. Mauricio, I'm sure you have something to add on the current landscape of SASE from your perspective.
Sure. So I'll go a little bit deeper in the slides that I have prepared for today. But in the simplest way to look at it, I agree with Amit's assessment, looking at it from the security lens, that the perimeter has dissolved, and that as the pandemic caused everyone to stay at home, it shifted the entire equation from a security posture and a security architecture on its head, that could no longer consider that the corporate network was where the data and applications needed to live. Now they need to live everywhere on the internet. So from a security perspective, obviously the security risks increase significantly. But what I'll add to it is, I think the other dimension here is the connectivity pain points that also rise with this seismic shift that took place and accelerated significantly over the last 18 months. So with people going from home, they require network connectivity now in spots that they never required that 24/7 capability to connect, as well as applications have moved into the cloud. That also has caused a new set of network connectivity headaches that needs to get addressed. And so the context of security and networking problem sets has kind of come together in this perfect storm, and for which SASE has flourished over the last 18 months, and has become a conversation about how do we tackle this emerging, or this enormous set of security as well as networking problem sets that now enterprise face.
Yeah, well said. So, further to that, Mauricio, I think then it's a good time for you to be able to share some of your research. So I hope all of you are excited for that. I'll let Mauricio take the floor right now, and he can kick it off.
Sure, thanks, Michael. So I'll call out the slides as we go along. So I think I already hit here with my initial statement just a couple moments ago, is that there's been a number of tectonic IT shifts that have been taking place over the last several years, and the COVID-19 pandemic substantially accelerated two of these, and I call these out. First is the path to enterprise digitalization. So the shift from on-prem application architectures to one that is now substantially cloud-based, moving into the public clouds or private clouds. And the reason for this, that the COVID accelerated this, is because business that used to be transacted in person needed to shift to a internet-based model because people couldn't get together. Things needed to happen over the internet in a socially and safe, distant manner. So lots of enterprises really accelerated their path that they had already started on, and continued to go on in that shift of applications to a multi-cloud end state. On the other side, I already touched on in terms of the reinvention that we saw virtually overnight, with everyone having to go home to practice social distancing. So as we look into the post-pandemic world that we're going into, we expect that what took place over the last 18 months is going to be, or has set the stage to how workplaces are going to function. And if we go to the next slide, Michael, we can quantify it in terms of how we see this from a numbers perspective, because as I mentioned here at Delora, we're a quant shop and we love numbers. So what I brought to today with me is looking at the investment and revenue that the cloud service providers are getting from their customer sets. As you can see that it's exploding in with not millions, but we're talking billions of year-over-year growth in the top 3 cloud service providers. And that acceleration, it's quite amazing, continued into the 2020 year and approached nearly 90 billion. So this is an example of how enterprises continue to aggressively shift towards a cloud-based application infrastructure. On the flip side, we looked at, well, what's the remote worker phenomenon? And of course, last year, we saw a lot of companies shift, those at least that could. And so you could see here the curve going from a baseline of about 100 million worldwide workers that had remote capabilities offered to them. It tripled. Now, as we look into the future, we see that a substantial number of these workers will continue to work remotely. And so this pulls into view the fact that the new post-pandemic normal is going to be one where, whether you call it work from anywhere or hybrid work, it's going to be one where people want to have the capability to work off-site while also partially going onto the office another portion of the time. So these are the numbers behind these 2 tectonic shifts that we saw. If we go to the next slide. So what about the enterprise network? Well, the pandemic exacerbated this tipping point that has been coming into view over the last several years. Again, we come from an enterprise model where the apps were local, the workforce was on-prem at a branch, at a headquarters, at a campus, and so remote work was more of an exception than the norm. And now we are in a world forced by the pandemic to a greater degree, where application infrastructures are substantially internet-based, and we as we just described, we are in this hybrid, highly mobile workforce era. And from a network perspective, this is causing a lot of strain in terms of how traditionally enterprise networks have been put together. If we go to the next slide, we can discuss, well, how is it that enterprises have looked at their architecture? Well, the architecture that served enterprises quite well was the hub and spoke, where you had at the center your headquarters or the data center where the data and applications resided, and then you had branches and offices hanging off as spokes. Your remote users were hanging off as individual spokes in this hub and spoke model using VPNs. And so you could use technologies like MPLS on the branch and office to connect back to the headquarters. And given the traffic dynamics, the application infrastructure, the number of remote workers that the architecture needed to support, things worked okay, right? So your security could be put as a in the center and become that perimeter-based architecture, and all traffic would go through that in order to hit the greater internet at large, which traditionally served more as an accessory and was in critical path to the business at hand that the enterprise was trying to drive. And so this worked okay, but as we saw over the last several years, there was already cracks in this particular model. And what started to happen is that people started to identify that, hey, the number of applications is moving towards the internet. The number of remote workers is starting to grow, and then that definitely happened in the last year. So that started to exacerbate the pitfalls of this architecture in terms of the cost of the transport network. So MPLS circuits are not cheap, like a traditional internet commodity transport. The VPN experience and the application experience started to suffer as the number of SaaS applications started to grow, and caused people to start complaining that, hey, when I connect to the VPN, my application, my Salesforce or my Office 365 doesn't work as well as to when I just directly connect to the internet at large. So over the course of the last several years, the industry has actually responded to these pain points. If we get to the next slide, we can talk about what happened on the WAN side. And so on the wide area network, the last several years has given rise to SD-WAN to deal with the network connectivity problems that I described with the hub and spoke model. So we started to move into one where the internet started to be leveraged as a transport versus higher cost MPLS or private circuits. And so the costs for the network started to come down, and the experience of from those branch houses was maintained, because that was one of the key virtues that SDN aimed to address, is to provide a network transport that was cheaper, but also overcome the intrinsic lack of reliability in comparison to traditional technologies like MPLS. So this happened on the WAN side. Conversely, over the last several years, if you go to the next slide, a similar type of transformation was happening on the security side, in terms of, hey, I need to instantiate services that help me control and provide visibility to this emerging set of SaaS-based applications. So the last 10 years, there's been emergence of what we call cloud secure web gateways, a proxy or an inline type of service that can live in the cloud. And so from a security perspective, this provided a way, again, to be able to control and allow the enterprise administrator to have the visibility and the ability to ensure that the correct applications, the correct data, and the correct users were the ones that were part of that enterprise mix. So we saw this starting to happen over the course of last year. So we get to where we are today and emerging. And so we go to the next slide. Now, where does SASE fit into this? So let's get to the brass tacks here. Is that, to us here at Deloro, we see SASE as a natural evolution of enterprise networking. If you take into account the connectivity problems that I spoke about, that come about with the hub and spoke model, that started to get addressed with the SD-WAN, and then you look at the security problems that came about because of SaaS applications, and that started to get addressed with technologies like cloud-based secure web gateways. Well, then the opportunity for these to converge, to be able to provide a platform, a unified networking and security platform, presents itself in order to create what we call a modern network topology, where the corporate network isn't made of the elements owned by the network itself. They're more so the cloud services, the network and security services that are provided by vendors such as Perimeter 81, in service of the network and security requirements that the enterprise has. And that then forms the new corporate backbone that interconnects every element that is part of today's enterprise network. So that could be branches, could be the endpoints at headquarters, as well as the multiple clouds that the enterprise now needs to face. So if we go into the conclusion, where we stand on SASE here, next slide, please, is that SASE is definitely not a fad. So with the pandemic, the severity of the connectivity and security problems became that much more acute. So I talked to many enterprises where the pain point is the access and the security of not just the SaaS, but the combination of this modernized application infrastructure, which is now distributed amongst a number of different compute and storage pools, as well as in the workforce explosion that we talked about, driven by the pandemic. And so hopefully I've been able to hit that the traditional hub and spoke model is inadequate for any number of reasons, but I highlight three here, including the cost and then flexibility of classical MPLS and WAN technology, or the application experience that suffers through VPN backhauling and pulling all the traffic from a user to headquarters, and only then sending it through to the internet through a central perimeter stack. Or lastly, the fact that there are the starting points here that exist in the technology vendor landscape that are coming together in service of being able to create a better solution than the individual networking and security solutions as called out by SD-WAN and secure webgate technologies. So again, for us, it's the natural evolution of enterprise networking and the architecture that we see increasingly being embraced by contemporary enterprises to address where the world sits today. So I'll hand it back to you, Michael.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mauricio. I actually see we have a couple questions, but like I said, we're gonna hold those off until the end of the call. But I promise everyone that they'll be answered. So let's take it to the next phase of this webinar this evening, SASE case studies with Amit Bereket. So Amit, if you would like to start on your end, tell us a little bit about SASE for business and some of the SASE use cases that are available today in the SASE world.
Yes, so thank you, Michael. Generally speaking, SASE, I think it's a perfect platform that basically gives you a solution for the needs of today, but also looking forward, because it's a software solution. It gives you also the ability to enjoy rapid developments and enhancements in order to answer the needs of tomorrow. Okay, just like iPhone, you can think of that you can every version it becomes more sophisticated and there are more tools that can support you throughout the journey. Now, today, SASE basically glues two main topics or fundamentals. One is networking side, that allows you to consume secured encrypted network, okay, layer 3 and above, from the cloud edge without installing any infrastructure. And two is security on top of that network that is basically the bloodstream to consume range of security services. Now, there are three main use cases when we refer to SASE. One is secure remote access, call it external to internal. The second use case is internet security, basically how to provide security from internal to external, the opposite way. And the third one piece is interconnectivity, how to connect between your branches and your team members, regardless where they are, as the one as a service type of offering. Now, I wanted to share with you a couple of case studies with a couple of our customers in very high level, okay? And when they reached out to us, specifically during COVID, that overnight their employees, basically speaking, went to work from home, and the corporate network, the office, was no longer relevant. And they had to basically build an infrastructure that will allow them to secure the access of the organization regardless where the employees are. The first customer that I wanted to present is Whiskey Auctioneer, which is a global market leader in auctions of whiskey, wines, and spirits, which provide it as online, right? They have an online platform and they have hundreds of employees all over the world. And they needed specifically to provide a secure network to their employees regardless where they are. So they basically speaking contacted with us. We, in an hour, I believe, if I remember correctly, we've built their network, set up the policies, connected the identity provider, and do everything that is needed so quickly that after an hour, they really managed to basically onboard their entire team members to the platform, and instantly enable them a secure network as a service to both access securely the web and utilizing our URL filtering and the DNS security, but also access the resources they have on a site securely without utilizing any legacy VPN in a zero trust mode. And the few things that were four items that were really relationate when we went that deployment back then is that the ease of use, the ease of implementation, the fact that the IT manager could very quickly onboard to the platform, onboard to the Print 81 platform, install it, configure it, set it up, and basically enjoy a peace of mind of a solution that is completely managed and does not require the IT manager time and efforts in order to manage the appliance, patches, updates. Simply, you can think about it like the Office 365 of cybersecurity.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amit. I appreciate that. Now that you guys have shared a little bit of the use cases, a little bit of your research, a little bit of the case studies, what is the future of SaaS? What should people come to expect from their SASE provider? And what does that look like both for the provider, someone like Perimeter 81, or the consumer themselves? What should they be looking for? Can you guys share a little bit about that? And we'll start off with you, Amit.
Yes, so I think I mentioned it earlier and very quickly that SASE is a platform where it gives you a solution for today's needs, but also for tomorrow's future. So the beautiful thing about it, that it's a software-based solution. All the deployments improvements are being done on an incremental basis. Okay, every week, for example, in Point 81, we have release a new feature, a new improvement, a new solution. And as the platform becomes more and more mature, we work with the customers, and of course, there are new threats and new basically vectors that SASE platforms will need to develop and evolve. I always compare it to the bloodstream inside your body. Okay, SASE is a software-based bloodstream that allows you to basically orchestrate, secure, manage your entire network infrastructure, reduce the attack surface, and basically provide a very secure platform. And that basically bloodstream can generate different antibodies in order to protect the body. In this case, the corporate. And let's take, for example, COVID, right? We managed to develop vaccination using software, basically speaking. The same we expect on SASE. So we'll see much more features and solutions being delivered through that delivery platform. We'll see cybersecurity companies, instead of developing solutions that are integrating to the company's firewall in the laboratory, will develop solutions that can easily be integrated to SASE platforms in order to be consumed as a service, utilizing a very simple concept of a single agent, a single management console, and a single network.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amit. And Mauricio, how about you? Do you want to add to Amit's comments, or do you have an entire different opinion altogether?
No, I think we have complementary, probably overlapping. First, I'll start off by saying that I agree that what we see is a shift from an on-prem hardware appliance world to one where we are entering a cloud-delivered SaaS cybersecurity and networking world. So this goes both not just for the security side, but also for the networking side in terms of the amount of spend that enterprise place will shift and is shifting over the course of the next 5 years. In our latest research, looking specifically to network security, the firewall or the network security appliance market, still the largest river overall, probably comprising a good 3/5 to 4/5 of the total market TAM, grew at a respectable 10%. But then that fifth or so that is being delivered through the cloud is growing at about 30% year over year. So that tells us that over the course of the next several years, we'll see this continuation of cloud delivered security flourishing and being a basis for how enterprises consume network security technology. So I completely agree in terms of what Amit just said, that the world of the future is going to be one where there's a cloud platform out there provided by a vendor or a set of vendors that the enterprise can latch onto. Now, specific to SASE implementations, what our ongoing research is showing us is that there's two emerging camps, because again, we're talking about convergence of networking and security coming together, and so there's a camp of vendors where it will be a single vendor to provide both the networking and security capability. And then we also see where vendors are coming at it from a best of breed approach and saying, well, I provide, I have a forte in networking, or I have a forte in security, and we're going to partner together to instantiate a cloud delivered SASE solution. So we see that happening, and there's reasons why companies may pick either single vendor or multi-vendor approach, no differently than we've always had in the landscape, and I think those being in terms of function, feature, and what it's important to the enterprise. So we see both of these flourishing, and in our ongoing research, we'll start quantifying how fast each of these two models grow. But I go back then to close with to saying that yes, the world is one where security, network security, is increasingly going to become cloud delivered, and hence why it's a tailwind for the SASE conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you guys for those excellent and insightful answers. And now that we have tackled some of those case studies, some of those research, we have a better understanding of SASE. We've reached the Q&A portion of the webinar. So I would like to share a few questions with you both. Mauricio, in the future, will all cybersecurity services become bundled into the SASE umbrella? What is your take on that?
Well, the short answer, I would say no, because the question says all cybersecurity services, right? So I think we need to be intellectually honest with ourselves and say, if it's a network-based technology, cybersecurity technology that is, then it's probably going to be a good candidate. And we already see this with the set of services that SASE providers like Perimeter One, they continue to extend over time. So to me, the short answer is that if it's a network-based technology that is delivered either on the endpoint today or as an appliance, it will be a good candidate to move into this cloud-based platform that a SASE provider can deliver to their customers.
Wonderful. I think we have two more. I'll direct one to you, Amit. If COVID-19 never occurred, would SASE still be popular, or was it just good timing? This is a great question, so feel free to tackle this one.
So, absolutely, yes. I think that the COVID accelerated it.
Sorry, Amit. I think you're coming in just a little bit quiet on my end. It's okay. We'll give you a moment. Why don't I actually pass the question over to you, Mauricio? If COVID-19 never occurred, would SASE still be popular, or was it just good timing?
Oh, well, now we can.
Oh, just in the
we got Amit back.
Oh,
Want to take a minute?
Got disconnected, so I apologize for that. But I didn't hear. I don't know if you are now speaking or not, but I will address to the question.
Please.
Is that absolutely yes. COVID accelerated the trend to work remote. I remember when we raised our Series A round, which was a year before COVID, we said that in a year and a half, 70% of the employees will work from home, people raised their eyebrows and asked me, what are you talking about? We really understood that. I think that there is a trend, globalization, the fact that today the internet becomes faster, work from home is increasing, but definitely COVID accelerated it by 2 to 3 years at least, if not 5.
Mauricio, I'm sure you have something to add on to that one.
Oh, well, I would agree, right? And I go back to my tectonic shifts analogy, right? Is that digitalization and remote work, we're already increasing independently. So think of it as kind of two continents that we're moving slowly, that we're changing the landscape. Well, the pandemic was basically an earthquake, and all of a sudden these continents and these tectonic plates really shifted quickly, and it jostled everyone, because everyone started moving quickly on digitalization, as well as everyone started working remotely. So that really put the fire under this conversation about how do we address these pain points. And so it was great timing for SASE to have started to flourish. And to Amit's point, I would agree that it accelerated the eventuality of its popularity by several years, but we would have gotten there nonetheless over the course of the next several years.
Wonderful. I actually have a question that just came in as you were speaking, Mauricio, and it's an interesting one, and either of you can feel free to answer it. What is the relationship between SOAR and SASE? So SOAR being security orchestration, automation, and response. Any of you feel up to answering that one?
Well, I definitely have a perspective, but you want me to go first, or you want to take it?
By all means.
Yeah, please.
Well, to us, SOAR is a different technology base, a different solution set used by security ops in service of being able to take automated action against security threats. And so SOAR is part of to us, part of the visibility and analytics layer in an IT operation. And so SASE, to us, will be providing telemetry, can provide telemetry to either a classical SIM, a more contemporary SOAR. Now, the other term that now gets tossed around is XDR, right? So these are sources of, these are all consumption solution sets that then the security operations team can start creating actionable intelligence and events to go back and poke at the underlying IT solution sets. And so today, our view is that that's a separate market, but we do see the opportunity of there being some overlap, given the fact that anything that's network-based can eventually be cloud delivered, and SOAR does have that strong element that could be part of a future SASE solution set.
Amit, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, I think Mauricio covered it very thoroughly.
Perfect. We actually have one more question. We've seen a wave of ransomware attacks recently. How can SASE help companies protect themselves from these kind of attacks? I'll send that one over to you, Amit, if you like.
Okay, SASE provides a comprehensive security suite, okay, to protect in many different levels. Specifically with ransomware, many of the ransomwares are generated from phishing attacks and basically emails that employees are opening and clicking links, right, that are usually considered as malicious. So SASE, one of the core features is a SWIG, URL filtering, that has threat feeds that are able to block suspicious links and basically prevent employees from opening links that might be at risk. And that's the first level. Secondly, it's the segmentation of the network. So once you're connected to SASE, platform usually have a great amount of segmentation between the network. So that basically allows you to contaminate if there is an infected computer, right? Let's say a managed device, then it can reach to a specific amount of resources that are very limited in order to prevent the widespread of the ransomware within the organization. And additionally, many of the ransomwares are generated from unmanaged devices that are being connected to a secure network. So with SASE platform, unmanaged devices are completely out of the network. They utilize a ZTA solution, a zero trust application access, which basically isolate the unmanaged device to the network itself. Separately, there are other solutions that you probably want to implement in order to protect with SASE, with ransomware, with endpoint protection and XDR platform, but that's a post-infection.
So we actually have another great question. So I'm going to throw it out there to you, Mauricio. Does investing in SASE services now mean my company will be, sorry, let me reiterate. Does investing in SASE services now mean my company will be safe in 5 years, or will I need to see another trend appear in the space? I think they're asking if there's going to be another trend in 5 years, or if my company's still going to be safe with SASE services in 5 years' time.
Well, I think it's a far stretch to say that any security technology solution is going to completely cover all bases for security attacks, right? Because if anything, what we've learned is that the threat landscape evolves so quickly that there's always something new that the attack community comes up with. But I guess I would flip the question around and say, if an enterprise doesn't do something, they're going to be worse off in 5 years. I can guarantee that, because there are few enterprises that are not going to a multi-cloud and embracing digitalization. There are few enterprises that are not embracing the hybrid work model. So if an enterprise is in that minority camp that, hey, we're not doing clouds and we're not doing remote work, then probably not doing something, and whatever they're doing today is going to keep them in kind of at a steady state. But let's face it, that the sheer majority companies are embracing cloud and are embracing hybrid work, so they need to do something. And I think the philosophy that SASE embraces and brings into view is something that should be and needs to be part of the conversation. Now, to the question about trends and additional security technologies, I do think that SASE, as defined today, isn't going to go away, right? So it's not like we're going to say, oh, we were completely wrong about a security or a cloud-delivered security platform. I think what you'll see is that incremental iterations over the philosophy of delivering network and security as a cloud delivered service. And so vendors will continue to improve upon in terms of scalability, agility, services offerings. And I do see that happening. But in terms of a wholesale shift in the next several years to say, let's toss out SASE with a baby water, not yet.
Understood. We have someone else that asked, if I'm reading this correctly, will SASE be mandatory in the future? Those companies that do not have SASE, is it possible that it could affect them or their reputation in the future in a negative way? Amit, do you want to maybe take this last question? Do you think SASE will be mandatory in the future? Does it affect the company's reputation?
I think it will be the best of breed. Like today, you can I think you can still buy Nokia, or like the old phone. You want to have a smartphone, right? I think the same would be with SASE. It will deliver a much better experience, a much better security. You still you'll be able to buy an on-prem firewall, but it wouldn't make sense.
Okay, well said. So some really great questions. So thank you to the audience. Really, some of the best questions I fielded so far as a moderator. But guys, just so you know, if you have any additional questions, people in the audience, if you do have any additional questions that we didn't have time to answer or address in this webinar, please be sure to write marketing@perimeter81.com. And of course, we also invite you to follow Perimeter 81 and Del Oro Group on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and subscribe to our Bright Talk channels for more great webinars every month. And of course, we can't close without saying thank you to our amazing presenters, Amit, Mauricio. Thank you so much for your time, your expertise, and your insights. And we look forward to hearing what you guys have to say in the very near future. And thank you again.
Thank you very much, Mauricio. And Michael.
My pleasure, guys. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.